We're going to get right into it. This is our first edition of the Black Law Book. So I'm actually working on a physical book, but I decided to start off with kind of like a podcast setting just to really go hardcore about the law, man. There are people literally planning to put us in jail on a daily basis and having meetings around it. And we don't have meetings around how to stay out. And we need to prepare on how to stay out. Hopefully you don't need these things, but I don't know if you guys saw the promo video that I did. In a bunch of these cases, a lot of people are it's hard to fight the case. You correct me if I'm wrong, counselor, when there's a confession on our end. So we're just going to go over how to avoid this stuff, and we don't want you to do anything wrong. So hopefully you don't. But if you do, I still want you to be prepared to give yourself the best defense, even if you do something wrong. So, counselor, if you could please tell the people who you are, sir, and what you do.
Absolutely. So, peace, family, and all. My name is Talib Saber, and I am an attorney based out of Maryland. I practice in education, law, civil rights, human rights, as well as personal injury. I'm also a big activist and organizer within the community. So a lot of my work intersects with the law and then just also being a grassroots activist.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, you go to law school?
North Carolina Central.
Okay, cool. All right. Good stuff. All right, so I got a few questions, and feel free to add in whatever you want to. If there's anything I missed, please let me know. If you have been drinking and driving and you get pulled over, the officer asks you, have you been drinking? What should you say?
It's up to the state to prove their case.
Okay.
So you don't need to admit anything. It's up for the officer to be able to show, and that's through the state, when you actually have if it goes to trial, that you have been drinking, but you don't need to admit anything. Even if you were, you don't need to admit anything to the officer that would implicate that you actually committed a crime.
Okay. If you have a defendant and they take the breathalyzer test and they fail, and another one who hasn't taken the test, which one is easier to defend in court?
Probably the one that hasn't taken it, because there is no proof of you failing the test. So again, it's about the state actually proving their case. It's much akin to if, there was, this is to an extreme, but like if there was a knife with blood on it and you were in the possession of it when they rolled up to your house, in comparison to you just so happen to be outside of your house and then a death or a murder occurred inside the house. It'll be like, it's a stronger argument in case to say that more likely than not, you may have committed this, though, again, they need to prove it if you actually had the murder weapon in your hand with the blood stains of the victim,
Gotcha.
as opposed to you just happen to be in the area when it occurred. So I would liken it to that.
Gotcha. And the way they get people is they say, well, your license will be automatically suspended. Again, people have to decide what works best for them. Me personally, I'm not taking the test. That's me. All right. I'm not taking the test. All right. Next question I have is, so this actually happens. It's in a lot of crime shows. So your husband or wife or your boyfriend or girlfriend, they go missing. They say, the first suspect is your significant other most times, right, sir?
Right.
Okay. They say, well, we need to get a statement from you in order to clear you. What should we do?
Again, that is, if you are making a statement to the police, there's this thing called having a custodial interrogation, which is normally when everybody hears the whole Miranda rights thing, right? So if you are down in the precinct or wherever you are, and they are questioning you, there's two things that must occur. There has to be you have to be in custody, and then there has to be questions in order for Miranda to be evoked. And Miranda just means that, the officers have to let you know about your rights to remain silent, and anything that you say can and will be used against you, those type of things.
Gotcha.
When you're writing a statement to the officers, that again could implicate you in some capacity. So your best bet would be to abstain from that, to hire counsel and allow the counsel to be able to speak to the police or defend you on your in that regard.
Gotcha. Okay. So again, we hope this doesn't happen, and we hope if it does happen, you aren't involved with it. But it does happen. So if the significant other goes missing, you're the first suspect. They're going to say, "Come down to the station. Come give us a statement," and they're going to say this probably. The sooner you give us a statement, or the more cooperative you are, the more you can get taken off of the list of suspects. Now, what would I do? I would call an attorney and I would have them talk for me. If it delays things, I'm not saying anything. All right?
Exactly.
Anything. Does everybody hear that? I want everyone to type this in. I want you guys to get me on this. Now, I'm not saying you have to, but I'm not saying anything. My overall basis is all transactions with the police, I need to have an attorney present. I don't care if I did it or didn't. When I say all, I mean all. Okay? All right. I'm going to keep on going, Counselor. Anything else you want to throw out there, feel free to throw it out there as well.
Yeah. Well, just to, as you're doing the question, just to kind of piggyback off of that, like what they'll do oftentimes when any type of questions that they'll come to you at, they'll always guise it under this notion of they're friendly and they're your friends, and that they are coming to help the situation and help you out in this swan type of song. We're talking about our community, Black folks for the most part. So the historical context of how our community has been with the police, has not been good at all historically. So when you look at that and then you look at what's going on within society today, yesterday, and years ago, it's the same, it's a different method. But you have to operate from the aspect of, and I tell all of the clients who I represent this for the most part, think about it like how you would be a tactician in war or a strategist in war. When you are in war, you're not going to go to your open enemy and say, "Oh, well, here's the secret. Let me give this to you." As a matter of fact, I did kill that person right there. So go ahead and, just do what you need to do. Like that would be asinine of you to do that. It's foolish. So likewise, you have to maneuver in this country like that when you're engaging with state officials and the police for the most part, because that's how the relationship has always been. So if you operate from the perspective of anything can and will be used against you, and then it's a possibility that you can get hemmed up by talking and engaging like this, then you'll know, okay, well, I won't say X, Y, and Z, or I won't do A, B, C because I know this may happen, so I need to protect myself.
All right. Pretend like you're at war, because you are, which is, I don't know why we're in denial about this so much. Like, they have a job. They go over this weekly, right? With the reports, you got to get the numbers up. You get them to talk. Okay. And do you have headsets by any chance, Counselor? I
do. They can't hear me?
One person said you're a little low. If you could throw them on, it's cool. If not, no biggie. All right.
Okay.
So then, all right, I'll wait till you do that. Okay. All right, you there, Counselor?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, cool. You did the crime. I don't want you to do crime, but you did the crime. The cops go to, okay, so I'm the parent. My daughter did the crime with her friends. The cops come to me and say, your daughter did this XYZ. We need to talk to her. I see parents send their kids to the police department on their own. You're shaking your head, I'm going with this one. On their own. Why is that so wrong, and what should they do?
When you initially said you send the child on your own, for some reason the word concentration camp came in my head. It popped up as you were saying that. Like, why would you send your child on their own to defend against the charge, to speak to the police? Like that, it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, what happens is our community, because we've just been oppressed for so long, a lot of our parents are just scared. and they believe that if you acquiesce and if you just go along with what they're asking you about or what they're saying, then it'll kind of alleviate the situation, which that's not the case. It's wrong because one, the daughter, and for purposes of this, I'm just presuming maybe she's a minor, but the daughter does not adequately know her rights to not talk to the police. If
Mm-hmm.
she's younger, then most likely than not, she doesn't know what she may say will implicate her in the crime. And then two, it's up to the state to prove its case. How many times have we seen where you would have people who are alleging that crimes and acts occurred against us,
Mm-hmm.
us as the victims, and the whole system came crashing down on us.
Mm-hmm.
Why aid to that? There's no need to do that. And with dealing with minors specifically, you always have, as a parent, you got to have that minor's best interest or your child's best interest at heart. And it wouldn't be in their best interest for you to send them off without any type of tools or keys to understand how to conduct themselves in this situation. And then also the police can take advantage of their youthfulness. They can take advantage of, and as practicing in education law with like school disciplines and stuff like that I do,
Mm-hmm.
you see it all the time where they'll take advantage of that dynamic of, oh well, you're young, so let me just intimidate you, because more likely than not, the office is bigger. You're already in a situation where it has high stakes as far as something bad that could happen to you or what you can lose out on. So you feel intimidated. So if you think as a grown adult you're intimidated, think about how a child feels.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're sending them off to talk to some institution that purpose may be to lock you up.
Okay, everyone got that? Your kid had the fight, didn't have the fight, stole the car, didn't steal the car. You do not tell your kids, why did you do this? Go talk to the police. Tell them I watch these shows and I tell them everything, fam.
Exactly. I
You
don't. I don't understand.
give your
I don't.
and again, you might have to cop out. Which cop out means it means take a plea deal, because you did do it. Don't make it easy. You want to make it as minimal as possible if you got to do something on advice of counsel of your attorney. But just go there, clean your conscience with your attorney. Do not clear your
Facts.
conscience with the
Facts.
cops. Okay, everyone got me on this. I need you to get me. And I only have 25 people in here. Where are your kids? Are your kids here with you? You need to have your kids here.
Yes, very true. Let them tune in on this.
Us acting like they don't have a plan for our kids is absurd. Third grade, they already have a number on them. Aaron says,
Exactly.
"What's the proper way to deal with stop and frisk, counselor?"
Stop and frisk. So basically, stop and frisk comes from a law or a case, Terry v. Ohio. And just to give you like some background of the case, this was back in the 60s, I believe. There was a brother outside of some type of store, and real talk, they were casing the place,
Mm-hmm.
but the police were watching them, and this brother outside, because I think it was like two of them. One was either inside and the other was outside, if I'm not mistaken. So the one outside, who would be Terry, um, they watched him for some time, and he was making these movements and these gestures and these things to make it appear as though he was casing the place. So they detained him, and then they kind of did a light search on him. Now, at that time, the Fourth Amendment applied. I mean, it still does, but searches were illegal unless you had a warrant. Seizures the same thing. But with Terry v. Ohio, what Terry did was it carved out an exception to that to say, I can detain you and do like a light pat down, which is a frisk, stop and frisk, to see if you have any weapons on you,
Okay.
that would be inherently dangerous or whatnot. So the best way to deal with a stop and frisk would honestly be, and again, this is going back to war, so I have to put my
Mm-hmm.
attorney hat on for the most part, and then place my activist hat on the side for just a bit, a little
Okay.
second,
Okay.
but the best way to interact and to deal with that is to ask the officers outright, what crime do you expect me of committing? Are you detaining me? am I free to leave? Those are like some of the questions. Well, am I free to leave?
Hit that
And
again,
what
please,
crime do you
counselor. If you could say that again.
what crime do you suspect me of committing?
Okay.
And am I free to leave? Those
Got
are
you.
two of the questions that you need to ask the officers in any type of interactions that you have with them, particularly if it's on the street.
Mm,
And if you're free to leave, then go. If you play Monopoly, it's just like, just go. Don't collect $200, just go. Get out of there,
yes.
right? But and then also, what crime do you suspect me of committing? Because if they suspect you of committing a crime, then they can stop you. But then you would ask the follow-up question, am I free to leave? And those type of things to get out the custodial scenario situation. To answer the question directly, though, with the stop and frisk, ask those questions, and then anything if they're doing, because there's, and I want to kind of give it bite size and not really dive too deep into
Yeah.
the law of it, but like there's a point in which it becomes a full search. And then if it becomes a full search illegally, I mean, they don't have any basis, no probable cause or reasonable suspicion, typically for stop and frisk, that you are committing a crime, then you can suppress the evidence if you do have any evidence on you at the motions hearing that you may have. But the best way to interact and engage with them would be asking those questions and then complying to, just the frisking of it, because at the same time you're on the street. And I tell this to the family all the time. Unless you're really ready for revolution and you just you on your Nat Turner tip, you know, at that particular moment where you like, deuces, I'm out, and you got nothing to lose, then okay. But if you're not at that point
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have no army to back you, then the best way to go about that is to make sure that you make it home, which means that you can allow them to kind of pat you down because they're going to do what they want to do anyway. And then if you have if there are any legal ramifications for that, you fight it in court. And that does not equate to dehumanizing yourself. And as a man, as a woman, whatever, that doesn't mean subjecting yourself to second class citizenship if you would. It just means that you want to make it home. And there's nothing wrong with making it home.
That's a great point. So, I saw a video. I try not to watch these videos, but they just pop up everywhere. I saw a video of a sister, but I think she was accused of shoplifting, and she was screaming in the parking lot, "I didn't do it! I didn't do it!" Which I firmly believe she didn't do it. Me
Mhm.
personally, this is what I would do. You tell me if I'm right or wrong, or if this makes sense to you. I would say I didn't do it, and if they asked me could they search me, I would say no. I
Mhm.
wouldn't physically resist it though.
Right.
I wouldn't physically resist it. Again, there's right and there's emotionally intelligent. I try to steal the emotional intelligence side of things. I wouldn't risk it. What I would do is have them do what they do. If I get arrested, I get arrested, and I would call you to fight it in court, whether civil court, whatever. I wouldn't try to fight it in the parking lot. I would try to fight it in court. And it seems like most of us, and I just have to just be honest, we could be overly emotional at times and not intelligent, which is for good reason. We do a lot of trauma, but my my thing is I'm fighting in court. I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna have you. I'm gonna tell you what happened. I'm gonna shut up, and I'm gonna have you
Exactly.
figure this thing out in court. What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And again, going back to the war analogy, that's how you handle it. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have the ammunition, you don't have the army to back you, you're outmanned and outgunned on the street for the
Mm-hmm.
most part. So it would not make any sense to engage in that right, because what's going to happen? You've seen video after video, time and time again. Even before the video, you saw it in print.
Mm-hmm.
You heard maybe the audio of it. What typically happens is you have the escalation.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. What are they going to say? Oh, I was scared for my life.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they threatened me. The way that she moved her hands was threatening. Next thing you know, either you're dead or you're incapacitated because they beat you so severely,
Mm-hmm.
that you're in a hospital for so many days. And what happens even on the civil side when you're suing on that regard with that, you have this thing called immunity, which is what a lot of police officers kind of get, which shields them from the liability of it, which
Okay.
is why you may see so many cases that settle in civil rights type of cases, because taking it to trial may be hard to prove. But when you're in that scenario at that moment, exactly how you outline would be best, because that's the smartest route to go. And like you said, because we've been through so much trauma for so many since we've been here,
Mm,
so much trauma that we've endured, it's kind of like I'm tired of this. But real quick, I have a story. One of my colleagues, because I also do bail reviews. So when you first get arrested here in Maryland, they still have cash bail. So when
mm,
you first get arrested, you go before a commissioner, and you either get a bond or you get released, or you may get held without a bond to be a judge. But I remember talking to a colleague of mine who had a son that was around my age, and she would tell me how her son every time would get pulled over coming out of his driveway, because they lived in a nice neighborhood up in Boyd out here, and would get pulled over all the time and then get harassed all the time. So there's one time that it happened after like the 10th time, he just was frustrated and kind of like kirked off on the officer. Like, I don't know why y'all effing keep stopping me and da 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 and all these things. And he got roughed up from that.
mm,
And I think that's a microcosm of how it is to be black in America. It's
mm-hmm.
like you always are enduring these type of things, and at some time you just reach your boredom or your breaking point, and
Yeah.
that may have been where the sister was at. But at the same time, we also have to be, like you mentioned, emotionally intelligent, politically intelligent, to
Mm,
understand and have full awareness of where you are, the circumstances that surround you, and what best way to circumnavigate all of this and get through it. And
mm,
the best way at that point in time would be, like I said before, making it home. How do you do that? Make sure you take these steps and to comply. And I hesitate on using the word comply because there's so much of a negative connotation with it.
yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, like being able to understand the scenario and the circumstances and making your best way to go home.
See, there are multiple ways to fight,
Hmm.
and usually the best way to fight is with legal representation in the courtroom, not in the parking lot having a shouting match. I don't. I do not comply to a search. I would like a lawyer, and you guys
Exactly.
got to search me. You do what you got to do. I do not comply. I do not
Exactly.
comply. And what is cash bail?
Cash bail basically is a system in which, in order for you to get released from jail, you have to pay money to
Okay.
do it. And
Okay.
some systems, and I don't practice in DC, though I'm like literally I'm in DC currently right now. But
Hmm.
I don't think DC has a cash bail. So it's either you are released and what's called personal recognizance, meaning you don't have to pay anything to get out. So either you're just released outright or they're going to hold you until your court date.
Oh
That's
wow.
those are the only two options. Whereas with the cash bail, not that it's a better option because it does criminalize poverty,
Mm,
but with cash bail, you have the three options. You can be released on your own recognizance, or you can be released on a bond, meaning that you would have to pay money to get out,
yes.
or you can be held until you see a judge the next day, or if it's Friday on that Monday. It's for the judge to decide if he's going to let you go, if they're going to assess or put a monetary amount on you, or if you were just going to be released, or when I say let you go, be released, or be held.
Okay. And sometimes with the bill, bondsmen per se, you're able to put some of the money up and use like your house or an asset as a collateral sometimes, right?
Right, right. The way bail bonds work, typically, as I understand it, is you pay them a small fee that you actually lose, and then they put up the rest.
Mm,
Whereas if you actually pay directly with the court, then you would get that money back after trial. So a lot of people don't understand that portion. But again, why I say it criminalizes poverty, because I had a client, for instance, who had a bail of or bond of it was like $50 or something like that, 50 or $75. Now, for people who work who may have disposable income,
mm,
you're looking at like, oh, it's $50. That may be like a date night or something like that.
yeah.
But for someone who is subjected to poverty, doesn't have a job, maybe are homeless, and the crimes that they committed are associated with that type of background. So like
Mm,
they trespass, urination in public, those type of things are normally associated with that. It criminalizes them and they're unable to get out. So now they're held in jail until their court date, which may be 6 to 8 weeks later.
mm. Okay. All right. Good stuff. What's the next one that I have? Okay. Why do people confess? And why do Black people confess? Those might be the same answers, they might be different answers.
Well, it depends on the color skin you get. Um, well, why do people confess? People confess because they believe in officer friendly. People confess
Okay.
because they believe that the state who is persecuting you has an interest in you being free. People confess because they believe that it's the quickest and easiest route to go. They think that they're
Okay.
going to have some type of out by confessing. So if I did a theft, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also, as a side note, how you see it on TV does not happen. You're not in this room, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I did it, or you're on a stand, and you just confess, oh, lock me if I did. It doesn't work like that. That's just hype with TV. But yeah, that's so when you are confessing, people believe that you can get some type of deal out of that. Now, granted, there's a distinction between that and then also having, say, like a plea deal. So let's take it a scenario or example where you have maybe 3 or 4 people who committed a crime, and the person who goes to the prosecutor first tends to get the best crime.
Yeah.
So I mean, excuse me, tends to get the best.
Yeah, deal.
Yeah, the deal. So that may in their line of thinking, it may be okay. Well, let me go first and tell them what I did, and then that way I can get this deal. But it can play out for you because several times that's why people do it, because it plays out for them. They get the best plea deal, but at the same time, it could backfire if the state decides that they don't want to adhere to whatever deal that was. So they can tell you behind closed doors, okay, cool, we got you. Next thing you know, you got that 15 years backup time. Yeah, that applies to this case. So not only are they going to convict you to this, then you got to serve the extra time that you had, backup because you were on probation or whatever the case may be. So that's one reason why people confess. Why Black people confess may be, and I'm gonna take it even a little deeper with the psychology behind it. Within our community, unfortunately, because we've been conditioned for so long, we have this mentality, not all, but a lot of us have this mentality of the white man's ice is colder, if you would.
Yes.
So like when you have that mentality, it's kind of like, okay, well, if I can confess to this crime, then they're going to look at me and they may be lenient on me in some capacity. Or it's a white attorney.
It's a white person. Yeah, they're white.
Exactly, it's a white person. Of course they're going to.
Of course, I got to submit to them.
Exactly.
They're Jesus.
Exactly. And I do see somebody asked in the comment section about what was it? It was along the lines that I'm talking about here. I can't find it, but so yeah, so they'll look at that and say, okay, well, that's the reason why I need to confess, because they'll either throw the book at me, or on the opposite end, that's what it was. Somebody asked about the plea deal, and what if an attorney he's pressing you to do a plea? So that if we work for you, so if you don't want the plea, then you don't have to take it. That's what it is. But back to the point, because we think that either they'll throw the book at us, or if it's our own attorney, then they may have our best interests at heart because they're white. That may play a factor in how we confess, or when we confess, or if we confess. And then morally, I think we as a people just have a heightened spirituality most. So it's that aspect of appealing morally. But the issue with that is, now the activist is me coming out. The issue with that is you cannot appeal morally to an immoral society.
Ooh, that's deep.
So we continue to appeal to people into a system, an institution that has no morality. And we get bit by it every time until we realize, when we realize that won't work, is when you'll see the change in the result of it.
That's heavy. Okay. So you did it, whatever. The rule of thumb, didn't do it, whatever. The rule of thumb is your attorney is your barrier. You confessing to the cop, I don't care how officer friendly you call the counselor, officer friendly, how friendly the officer is, you know, your friend's already told. Your attorney is going to, if something needs to be negotiated, sometimes it can get thrown out. Well, he didn't do it. He didn't say there's no fingerprints. All right, he got to go. If it has to get worked out, it's their job. It is not your job to get sympathy from the officer. It's your job to contact an attorney. If you're on behalf, counselor.
No, I'm good.
You're good. Okay. If you're asked to step out of the car, what do you do?
Step out the car. And again, this would be the case of just being. Now isn't the time to fight that. Like if an officer gives you a lawful command, you step out the car. If you don't step out the car, what's going to happen? There's a theory of it, and then there's the reality of it.
Oh, okay.
The theory of it is, oh well, you know, I shouldn't have to step out the car because I don't have a broken tail light. They can't prove I have a broken tail light, and it's illegal to, you know, get me to step out the car.
Mm-hmm.
You can, like you said earlier, you can say, I do not consent to a search. I do not consent to this interaction, you know, just do a blanket type of statement.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the theory. The reality is, if you do not consent to step out the car, they're going to bust your windows. They may shoot you. And then what's going to happen? Because you're not going to have an opportunity. Well, if you make it out alive, you would. But if you don't, then you won't have an opportunity to actually bring it to court. So the best advice I would give a person when faced in those circumstances is to just step out the car, still have a conversation with the officer if you can. You know, if he's just completely hostile, then you just directly answer the questions and you don't have to do any other things. But you know, handle it from that perspective, and then you'll be able to make it out alive. But again, that's not the time to start being macho or saying I know all of my rights and you know you can't do X, Y, and Z. Like no,
the less words, the better. The less words, the better. So if they ask us to step out of the car, does that automatically consent to a search, or can we say I am going to step out, but I do not consent to a search?
You can say I'm going to step out, but I do not consent to a search.
Okay.
Because also, and even taking it a step further, when you do consent to a search, you can say, well, first of all, I don't agree that you should consent at all, like under no circumstances whatsoever. But
even if you did nothing, or if you did or didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But even if you did, you can limit the scope of what they can search. So under a scenario of you getting stopped on the road and, you know, and this is normally what happens. They'll lean in the car. So they'll always lean in the car to see if they smell any type of weed or whatever, or any type of drugs, see anything, because you have this plain view type of rule, meaning that they see it in plain view, then clearly they can confiscate and they can search for the rest of the evidence of that particular contraband. But when they'll lean in the car and they'll look and see all these things, but and I lost my train of thought. Sorry, y'all.
It's okay. It's
What was the
we'll get it back. If you step out of the car, do you automatically consent to a search? You said
yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so so you can limit the search. So even if you did consent to the search, you can say you can search every aspect of the car except for the glove box, or you can search just this what's that called, the console of the car, but that's it. If you are consenting to a search, and this is the rule of thumb for that, I would say if the officers have to ask you to consent to a search, then there's no probable cause to consent to the search.
All right.
Because they would do it without asking you at all if they have probable cause to do it.
Oh, that's good. Okay. So do not consent to search. You can step out of the car. Do not say, I do not consent to a search, whether you got something in there or don't, right? That's a general rule of thumb you can go with. Now, they also ask, can I search your home? You're at the police station. Maybe allegedly you got bagged with a couple of pounds of herb. They're going to say, look, I'm going to get a search warrant in the morning. If you give me the keys or give me consent, I won't break your doors to get into your house.
Right.
And again, people say yes. What is What is your viewpoint on that?
This is why I'm glad that you have this platform, brother, because it's educating our people to
Uh,
understand exactly
Thank you, brother.
how to
Thank you.
interact and engage
I
with the
appreciate it.
cops. So thank you for that. But you do not do that. Your house has the highest form of protection, the highest level of
Mm,
protection,
okay.
more protection than you have on the street, more protection than you have on the road. Because even when you're on the road, there's this thing called the automobile exception. So they don't need a search warrant because it's going to take too long to go to the court to get a search warrant to come and search the vehicle, and the vehicle is not going to be there. So it's an exception to the rule of searching, needing a warrant to search your automobile
Mm,
because you can find a probable cause as you're out there. But as it relates to your home, absolutely not. Make them do the work. Make them prove that you are guilty of this crime. Because what's
okay.
going to happen is, even if you did give them the keys, they're going to tear up the house. It's going. They don't have any duty to fix anything, so they're
None
going
at
to
all.
tear up the house, and then you're going to find that even if your house was spotless, you never know one who can come there. You know who, like, say if you live with somebody, if you got a roommate or something like that,
Hmm.
or even if you are a parent and then you have your children, and your children naturally have friends that may come over and doing some things that you are unaware of, then you still have that. So you don't know what could be planted in your house. Not only that, the cops can plant stuff. Let's be
Cops,
completely frank about it.
and
The
they do.
cops can plant stuff, and they do. And that's one of the reasons why you never consent to a search, because they easily can plant stuff in your car, plant stuff in your house, and then next thing you know, you brought up on charges for it, and you stand
Hmm.
in jail because you're convicted of it. And then what? 25 years later, the state wants to issue an apology for it.
Say no. All right. Is there? This is actually an important one. This is okay. Is there a national organization that one can call if they are in these situations that may involve illegal activities, such as illegal searches? A lot of people don't have the money for the representations, especially for civil lawsuits. This is actually very, very important. Are there any pro bono good attorneys out there who take this stuff on?
Yeah, so there are a couple of organizations like I'm a part of, well, I'm affiliated with, not part of, the National Council of Black Lawyers, Conference of
Okay.
Black Lawyers, excuse me,
Hmm.
NCBL, who does this type of work in litigation. There are other organizations like, what is the name of that thing? The ACLU handles these cases. Um, uh, it's a plethora of organizations that handle these types of cases. The one thing that I will say, and I always tell people, is a resource that hasn't really been tapped in as much, which you can use, is the law school legal clinics. What
Okay.
happens is, if you do not have money to for like a full representative, so say for instance, because I'm a private attorney, so if you didn't
Hmm.
have money to pay my fee, then you
Hmm.
can easily go down to any law school's legal clinics. They have
Hmm.
various clinics on, say, if it was family law. This is outside a bit of the scope of what you asked specifically, but
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
family law, criminal law, even just civil litigation, which would fall under this. They have legal clinics for that, where they're teaching their students how to prepare for the trial and prepare for the case and do these things, so they're getting the experience from it. But at the same time, naturally, they're going to have the supervising attorney who, for the most part, at least how Central was and all the other schools that I've been affiliated with are, have supervising attorneys that are practicing attorneys. So
Mm.
they're supervising in these legal clinics, but they actually have their own practice. So
Okay.
they're literally practicing attorneys. So they're watching over it, and then they can bring people on to the cases as well.
Mm.
So those are a couple of resources that you could use.
That's deep.
Um, yeah.
Good stuff, counselor. And I had a professor in the school. I think what was the class? I was an African studies major in college, and she said,
Mhm.
I don't care what you're going through, what you have, make sure you have $1,000 for a lawyer. Now that won't
Facts.
get you to
Facts.
trial more than likely, but another class I had. So in my head, I always want to be a lawyer, right? I just think it's cool. So
Right.
so uh, and another class that said, one of the most important times in your legal procedure is showing up with a paid attorney when they're what's the word? The first time you're in court. It's to have a paid attorney with you on your
Okay.
side.
Initial appearance.
Initial appearance. And I think it's true. You can tell me, tell me what you think. I knew somebody, and I called an attorney and was able to get them in there, lickety split, and they were in their serious charges. They had no priors, and they were able to get out on ROR. I doubt they would have been able to get out if we didn't have that outside counsel.
Very true, and that happens a lot of times. And I'll say, just being somebody who understands the role of the spook who sat by the door,
Mm,
who understands like the duality of being someone who I consider, is myself as someone who's actively doing things to dismantle the institution of racism and white supremacy. But at the
mm,
same time, as it exists, I happen to be, real talk, a part of the system, because as a lawyer, that's what you are, a part of the system. But
mm,
when you're dealing in relationships, let's be clear, a lot of people have a tendency to believe that lawyers in the back rooms cutting backdoor deals, and they know the judges, and that's how they just hem you up and these type of things. All of which is true to a certain extent. I've seen it, I've
mm.
witnessed it, but at the same time, having those type of relationships does help your client. So I'll give a perfect example. I'm a part of several bar associations where there are other lawyers, other judges, other people who are in the judicial system. Okay. If I'm representing a
Oh, okay.
client, if I'm representing a client, and say if I was doing criminal law
Mm-hmm.
and my client was accused of um, theft or burglary,
Mm-hmm.
let's say burglary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I happen to know the head police officer. The name escapes me, the title escapes me right now, what they would be called, but the chief of police.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I knew the chief of police, and I realized that the chief of police was either in that position to help mitigate some stuff, or even if he wasn't, even if I just say if I grew up with him and
Mm-hmm.
he and I politics are completely opposite, but I have a relationship with him,
Yeah.
and then I have a relationship with, say, the judge. You know what I mean? That will help my client, because now I can say, all right, well, you did this thing, but let me holler at the chief of police, see if
Mm-hmm.
we can get something suppressed, or
Mm-hmm.
have the officer maybe not show up to court. Let me holler at this judge and see if, since we're golfing buddies or whatnot, let's see if we can use that to my benefit when we go before the court. Because what happens is, oftentimes with attorneys, if you don't have relationships with the judges,
Yeah.
then say the other party does, so say the state does in a criminal context, then the judges will look at those of whom they have relationships with. Say, okay,
Wow.
well, I know this person, and I've seen the reputation and work of this person. I don't know you,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm gonna make you work even harder to prove your case, as opposed to someone who has the relationships with. So from the one hand, back to the other, I don't know if it was a brother, sister, something just call you family. From the other family's perspective of when they ask about the plea deal and that gets pushed on you, like from that perspective, if they know if they have a relationship with the people, then it's like, okay, well, maybe it is to your benefit to do this because you know how this judge is, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to fly. But on the other hand, if you don't have those relationships and you got
Mm-hmm.
an attorney who's just pushing this on you, that's like completely different. But I think that not necessarily always looking at those relationships as inherently bad per se, because it can help you out if you really did do
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's why it seems like a lot of foreign prosecutors make pretty good defense attorneys because they know a lot of people in the courtroom
Right.
already. Already. So good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Did I miss anything here? How accurate is all rise? I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure what that means.
I say, well, if I had to guess, because I don't know if that aligns with the Moorish side. So let me just say this: with the Moorish language, because again, like I said, I'm active in the community, and I deal with the Moors. I deal with the Nation of Islam. Like, I have a lot of comrades who are in
Okay.
lines, those realms. I have never used the Moorish science in court. I have never seen it effective.
Mm.
That doesn't mean that it does not work. I've built with attorneys, I've communicated with attorneys who practice in New York, where we see it a lot, like New York, Philly, those type of areas where you see it a lot.
Mm.
And some attorneys have told me it hasn't worked, but I haven't seen it personally, so I really can't assess if it works or not.
Okay.
To that point, and then to the other one, all rise. I'm guessing you're talking about when you first enter the court, and when the judge first gets on the bench, and then you have to rise. I mean, it's a formality that is showing respect to the court. The bailiffs are the ones that really look around and see who's rising, but you don't have the bailiffs literally looking at everybody to see, oh, he didn't rise, or oh, he didn't rise, like that. If you're going to that point. Oh no, they're talking about a TV show.
I just realized. I've never heard of it. Have you heard of it?
No, I've never heard of it. My bad.
Okay. All right. All good. All good. I think I'm out of questions, counselor. I'll do a quick review. I'll do a quick review.
Uh,
If you want to throw anything out there, you can throw anything out there. All right. So we started off. If you've been drinking, don't drive, first of all. But if you do
yeah,
it anyway, please don't do it. But if you do it anyway, um, you have a harder time fighting your case in court if you take the breathalyzer or the walking thing test, right?
right.
Now, what might happen is they might automatically suspend your license. Me personally speaking, not talking for the counselor, I would rather have a suspended license than be charged and be charged with the crime rather than me having ample proof and make it harder for an attorney to fight in court if I
Right.
did it, which I wouldn't do it. So my opinion is don't take the test if you know you've been drinking. It's probably like 2 drinks might put you over the limit if you had them recently. I wouldn't chance it. I personally just wouldn't chance it. I want my attorney to have the best chance to fight my case in court, and me giving the state evidence will make my situation harder to fight. Um, if your child has a fight at school, do not send your child to go to the police station to go figure it out,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Did it? Did they had a fight? They stole the car? Well, I don't care what the hell your kids did. I don't care if they really did some mean, ugly stuff. And they
Mm-hmm.
got to serve time. They got to serve some time. But you do not become the police and the religious figure and all this confession stuff.
Exactly.
They will talk to their paid lawyer who you're going to hire, um, or legal aid who present you. They will talk to them about it and they will work things out. Do not send them to go talk to these people. Do not consent to searches at all, whether you got some herb in the car or you don't. Do not consent. If a loved one goes missing, they're going to tell you, give us a statement. The faster you give us a statement is the faster we'll be able to eliminate you as a suspect. We want to find your loved one. You're going to say, I would love to, officer, but I need to make sure I have my attorney here in order to give you a statement. Once I have them here, I will give you a statement. If your friends did the crime and they already confessed, you do not confess. You do not say, man. Or if they say, well, if you tell us first, we'll be able to make it better on you. All transactions go through your hired counsel. Do not try to you might be able to outtalk your boyfriend or whatever, not the cops. These are our people you want to outtalk somebody else. Can I search your home? No. Do you consent? No. All these things are no. You're going to ask for an
Right.
attorney. You're going to plead the fifth. All right. Anything I missed, counselor? If you want to give an overview, you can knock that out.
Absolutely. But I did see 2 questions that popped up
Okay, cool.
that I'll ask. Now, can the police ask you for ID at a protest? A lot of these cases are state specific. So you have, like, for instance, in Maryland, you don't have to drop your name if they ask you for it. And again, in legally, you don't have to. It may expedite them getting out of your face if you did,
Mm,
particularly if you have not done anything and it's just your name. Because again, they have to have a basis to run your name. So
mm,
even if they ask for your name, then they stop and say, all right, what's your name? And I told them, all right, Tyler Chopper. Then they would have to have a basis to run my name to see if there's something on me. You know what I mean?
Mm.
There has to be some type of illegal activity that's being done in order for them to do it. But in Maryland, you don't have to do it. At that point, I don't know what state you're in. I know here they don't have to, or you don't have to give them your ID for a protest. Um, so long as again you have not committed any crimes. If you're just at a protest and you're just protesting. Now demonstrations and protests are a different type of topic with that because then you're dealing with the First Amendment. Right now, in this particular conversation, we're dealing with the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment being searches and seizures, which governs that. Fifth Amendment is the confession, the right to not be a witness against yourself. And then the Sixth Amendment deals with having a right for counsel. Those are what we call the criminal amendments in the Constitution. And what you're dealing with police and protest demonstrations, anything dealing with free speech, right of assembly and those type of things, that's the First Amendment. So it's a different analysis with that. And to the second one, could you please talk about how cooperating with police departments can erode civil liberties within a neighborhood? Okay, so that that's like a combination in the sense of first and fourth, because then you're dealing with searches, but it's also a right to privacy as well. So anytime that you're talking about engaging with the police, the deferment should be no. Should be like I don't consent to anything that will give them access to anything. Because once you enter into these agreements, like you said, it's an agreement. You agreed to do this, and this is what it is. So if I see anything criminally that comes from that, then you have allowed me to do it. So you're essentially setting yourself up for that. So I think you have to be very strategic and smart with it. But again, as you have wrote that out, it seems like you have a bit of knowledge of, why you should not do it. I can infer it from how you wrote it out. So now you just impart that knowledge on those of whom you may know that don't know. And here you identified elders. Elders in the community or senior citizens are what's the word I want to use? They're a class of people that are vulnerable.
Mm.
They're a vulnerable class of people, and we have to do all that we can to protect our elders. And if you do have the knowledge and the understanding and wherewithal, you can impart that wisdom on it. And you're in Pennsylvania. Yeah, I don't know the laws of Pennsylvania, but at the end of this, I'll drop my information. You can contact me, and we can see if we can. If I have some comrades who practice in PA. So
Okay.
that will be able to help that out. But to the overall overview of it, I think you can just take away from this: don't talk to police, or don't consent, to any type of searches or any type of questions that they may have for you. Make sure that you make it home. I think that's really big. Make sure that you make it home, and it's always good to have counsel on your team. Be it even if it's something from the criminal aspect, if you got involved with that, even to business. Just being able to review documents and look over your stuff. With the full gambit, it's always good to have one on board. And not all attorneys are this are these attorneys that play you out and don't have your best interest at heart. All this and that. I'll give a quick story and then I'll wrap up. When I first got out of law school, my very first case that I joined a team on was a it was a murder gang case in Baltimore.
Mm.
And with that, the lead attorney on the case, who happens to be my mentor now, um, he he was like me. Like we had the same birthday or around the same age. And, he had a background in the arts like I do in film and all of these things. So we would literally, our schedule would be, I would get up at 4 in the morning to prepare to drive to his house at and be there by 6. And we would drive to the court and do what we need to do to prepare for trial at 9 o'clock. After trial, so trial would be from 9 to like say 5 in the afternoon. Then we would drive back, which took an hour to his house, and it take me an additional hour to get to my house. And by that time, it would be like 6. It would be about 7 o'clock. I would take a quick nap at 30 minutes, and then he literally would be sending me stuff saying, "Hey, we need to look up this argument. hey, we need to see if this works, and I would be up till probably like 2 a.m. and repeat that same cycle for a whole month, you know. So when you're dealing with attorneys, all attorneys aren't these cookie cutter types that are just in it for the money. You actually got attorneys out here working hard, sleepless nights, advocating for our clients, And I think sometimes the profession, well, people in the profession get a bad rap because of the profession.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to identify the person who is in the profession and see if they have the integrity and just watch how they move. And then that will speak volumes as opposed to just judging it from the actual profession.
Okay. What, last question. What do we have to say? Do we have to tell them our name if they ask us, and do we have to give ID? Past that, is there anything else that we must say, or else we're violating the law?
No, there's nothing that you need to tell the cop outside of what you just identified and outlined.
Okay, the ID and our name, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. And because anything else typically comes from the attorney. So even if they started to interrogate you, asking questions to you, you don't have to answer, particularly if you're in custody and they start questioning. So that goes back to the original 2 questions that you all need to remember when you're engaging with them. Am I free to leave? And what crime do you suspect me of committing? You got those 2, then the officer, you're able to shut down the officer without even having to say, I know my rights. You don't
Don't
have to
say
do
that.
all that.
Don't say that
Yeah,
stuff.
don't say that. That escalates it. But if by you asking those 2 questions, that will be able to kind of like chin check them a bit. So they'll think twice. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to do the illegal behavior, but at least they've been put on notice to know, all right, well, this
I'm smart.
Right.
I know the law. I know the law. All right. Everyone got that? Does everyone got that? If you forget this, if you forget anything, I would like to speak to an attorney. You did it or didn't. I would like to speak to an attorney. I do not consent to a search. What crime am I suspected of? Am I free to go? If you are free to go, you're free to go. You leave. You do not stay and talk more. You do not need to prove your point. If you're for shoplifting, you didn't steal anything, you say, I did not steal anything. I would like to have an attorney present. If they arrest you anyway, you have your attorney fight it in court. We have to be emotional, intelligent. This video, I'm going to put it on YouTube. If you guys want to watch the replay, it'll be up there tomorrow. Thank you, Counselor. I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you greatly. Great stuff.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank the family as well. Like I said, you have my contact information so you can share with the family. And yeah, thank you for this platform. We definitely need this, brother.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll have you back again soon. And if anyone need your services, you're in Maryland, right, sir?
Yeah, I'm in Maryland. DC is pending because I'm finishing my application to waive into DC.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff.
But yeah, I'm based in Maryland, based out of Greenbelt. So it's kind of like if y'all are familiar with the DMV area or the DC metro area, then yeah, I stay in that part of Maryland.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And you do criminal law?
I do education, civil rights, and personal injury.
Gotcha.
So the civil rights kind of overlap with the criminal stuff.
Okay.
The Constitution.
Good stuff. All right. Great to know. All right, Counselor. Have a great day. Bye, guys.
All right. You too. Peace.